There are 3 things an ADHD mind needs something to be in order to stay focused on it. That thing has to be interesting, important, and have a sense of urgency to it. Those rules likely apply to anyone, even if you don't have ADHD, but unfortunately, not everything in life meets those criteria. And when it doesn't, you have to have a plan to stay focused. Welcome to Health, Harmony, and Happiness with Kathy. I'm your host, Kathy Stricker. I'm a state patrol wife, mama to 3 lively kiddos, a yoga teacher, certified NLP coach, and an energetic rhythms expert. As an energetic rhythms coach, I help action-taking women use their body's rhythms and the moon's cycle to optimize productivity and avoid burnout without letting their desire to remain in control alter their focus. And this podcast is all about doing just that and perhaps a bit more so that you can create your own path to health, harmony, and happiness. So come along with me and may this episode serve as a nudge to discover tools that could help you on your path towards more intentional living. Enjoy the show. Hey friends, welcome to episode 80 of the podcast. So glad you are here. The solstice was last week, but just because it's over doesn't mean you can't still fully embrace the energy of summer, as we are completely in the midst of summer and summer craziness right now. At least I know we are at my house with different routines, different schedules. And sometimes that means it feels a little bit chaotic or crazy, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But I want you to know that we absolutely can still fully embrace the energy of summer, even if the solstice is already over. The energy of summer is one that means we get to celebrate that things are blooming and highly energetic and beginning to release and slowly turn inward, expansive and contractive at the same time. And I put together a little tool to help you do this, to help you fully embrace that energy of summer. It's called the Solstice Celebration of Rhythms Planner. And I used it last week at the Solstice Celebration of Rhythms event that I held. That was an in-person event. And also, I want you to have access to that as well. It's technically a one-day kind of planner that guides you through how you can honor the dualistic energies of summer, with simple things that you can do either by yourself or with your kids. Because as I was saying a moment ago, I know what it's like to get stuck in the busyness trance or the trance of doing all the time, especially when kids are at home and schedules or routines are not consistent. So this little tool gives you permission to give back to yourself, to pour back into yourself, even involving the kids if you choose to do so that you can feel more in flow with your time, energy, and focus, even when life is not so routine. They're just little connection pieces that you can use. Check it out if you haven't already. I'll drop the link in the show notes, or you can find it at KarenYogaWellness.com/summer solstice planner. Summer really can feel crazy and like you have no control, as if you really do have control over anything but yourself anyway, but just because of that, because I know how you're feeling in this instance, and here I'm speaking to myself as well because I go through these moments where I'm feeling this same way. I just want to give you a little bit of encouragement if you're feeling like you're not getting the things done that you had wanted to or that you expected to during this time. You've got this. Keep going. The rhythm of summer is definitely different, but it doesn't mean you can't still feel like you're getting things done and flowing with life, even if it's hard to focus because you want to be doing all the things with your kids, or maybe just because you want to be playing hooky and sitting by the pool. Consider that it might just be that you are being given an opportunity to evolve your way of thinking into one that can acknowledge and accept the present moment as it is and let yourself off the hook a little bit. To be okay with trusting the rhythm you are in instead of trying to control the situations to be how you want them to be. It's okay if things don't look exactly as you want them to or think that they should look in your mind. No matter what's happening for you right now, it's part of your life's puzzle and it needs to be here. So each moment you're being given the chance to look at things through the eyes of mindfulness, to use that pause between the situation and the outcome to decide how you want to either react or respond. So here's your little bit of encouragement. In that pause where something's happening and maybe it's not going exactly as you want it to go, breathe. Then move forward, taking aligned action with what's essential to your highest good. Breathe and respond instead of react. You've got this. You will make it through summer. But instead of thinking that you just have to make it through summer with your kids around you or your kids at home or the kids' craziness or the craziness of schedules and lack of regular routine, embrace it. Be with it. Know that this too can be here. Say yes to it and allow it. It gives it space to breathe. It gives it space to just be in your life. And once you do that, once you stop resisting, life flows. You stop trying to control. You allow. You trust. Life can flow, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have any boundaries or you don't have limits. Not that at all. It just means that you're not trying to grasp, trying to hold on so tightly to this idea that you might have in your mind. So embrace and be in this rhythm of summer, the rhythm that is both expansive and contractive. And believe it or not, we talk a little bit more about moving from contractive energy to a more expansive energy in this episode, actually. In today's episode, I continue my conversation with Tracy Nolan Bierman of the Vision Driven Moms with ADHD podcast. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, stop this episode right now and click on last week's episode instead and listen to it first. It's going to give you some background info that you might find helpful when listening to today's episode. So there are 3 things an ADHD mind needs something to be in order to stay focused on it. That thing has to be interesting, important, and have a sense of urgency to it. But when that doesn't happen, you're likely to lose focus and bounce around from task to task, eventually moving into a contracted, frustrated, and overwhelmed state because nothing is getting done. And the key to getting out of this state is to flow into an expansive state so that you can come back to a place of focus and feeling successful, whatever that might look like to you. And that's what Tracy and I are talking about as we continue our conversation about ADHD today. In today's episode, you'll learn what a vibe care toolkit is and why you need one, even if you don't have ADHD, how to navigate life and feel successful in whatever you do while living with ADHD, and why living a vision-driven life is ideal if you're a mom living with ADHD. Enjoy the show. So You're talking about these supports and the supports that you can use. And is that what you call vibe care?
That is part of it. So vibe care is something that I kind of developed along the way in my own life. And vibe care is checking in with yourself throughout the day, right? Not waiting until you're having a panic attack. It's not waiting until you're triggered. It's checking in with yourself throughout the day, knowing yourself enough where you know something's coming, or, oh, look at that, I'm feeling contractive energy, right? Contractive energy, that low vibration energy of, anger or sadness or frustration, overwhelm. Like, to me, it feels like I'm just like want to clench my fists and almost want to go fetal. So what with vibe care, we're checking in, how am I feeling? Am I feeling contractive energy or am I feeling expansive energy? And not stopping if you're feeling expansive, like, how does that feel? And practicing that. We want to be practicing what it feels like to feel good. what it feels like to have expansive energy, so that when you're feeling and feeling that contrast of, oh, this is contractive energy, this is expansive, I can feel both, right? I don't have to be stuck in the contractive. So
Right.
checking in and then creating what I call a vibe care toolkit, which has all kinds of things in it, tools and tricks that feel good, right? So sun
Yeah.
salutations, they feel good to me. That would be something I'd put in my vibe care toolkit. Meditation, not meditation. I would call a practice, something that you do regularly. Meditation is not something that I'm going to pull in when I'm feeling anxious, because to make myself sit in meditation when I'm feeling anxious is not going to work, right? My body needs to move it out. Silly little things like, I have chickens. You have chickens too, right?
Yeah.
Don't you have
Yeah.
chickens?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
going out and visiting my chickens. So I have to pass my garden on the way, and they are just, I love my chickens. They're delightful. They make me laugh. They make me feel expansive. Does that make sense? So the checking
Absolutely.
in with yourself, already deciding what are the things that make me feel good. Not when you're in a moment, oh my gosh, what should I do now? It's already deciding ahead of time. These are the things that feel good. These are
Yeah.
I hula hoop too. I like to hula hoop. So picking up the hula hoop.
Uh-huh.
Okay. What do I need? What do I need to feel expansive right now?
It's so much like what I teach people with being able to almost anticipate the fact you have to stay on top of it. It's almost being
Right.
able to anticipate what you're going to be feeling, or that energy that you're going to be feeling, or being able to tune into it at the very beginning of it, and then
Right.
taking the action so that you can move through it. And so what I'm hearing you say is you want to feel expansive, but in a way, you also have to do some of the contractive work of taking action, because expansive
Right.
can be thought of as being passive, right? Like it's opening,
Mhm.
it's freeing, but it's very good. And we want to be living in that state of flowing. And we also have to be taking action, which is contracting the muscle, doing the thing to make sure that we can stay expansive.
Right.
So it
Right.
is also both. And so by taking the action of moving your body, of doing sun salutations, of visiting the chickens, of even if it's pushing a wall or jogging in place, to kind of realize, I got to break this pattern that is coming on, and I need to get back into this emotional regulation. That's what it's
Absolutely.
finding. That's what goes in your vibe care toolkit.
That's it. And it's different for every person, you know?
How do you like, I envision this in my mind, and maybe it's similar to an ADHD mind, but like, how do you remember then? Do you keep a list of those? Do you keep those someplace so you know,
Absolutely.
like, oh,
Yes.
I got to come back to this list and I got to look, okay, I could do this. I could do sun salutations right now, because some of those things, if you don't do them regularly, I would imagine you don't think about them.
Right. Right. Yes. Okay. So a couple of things. You mentioned that you don't want to let it go too long, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's harder it's easier to catch it than it is to fix it, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe not fix it. I had a emergency appendectomy years ago, and something that the doctor told me: stay ahead of the pain. And it's because once you have the pain, it's really hard to reel it back in. And it's the same thing with your emotions, right? If you're checking in and you're staying ahead of it, then it's going to be easier to take care of. And one other point I wanted to make about that, and then I'll talk about the toolkit and how we're going to remember those things. But vibe care is not about dismissing the feelings, right? Vibe care is about taking care of the contractive energy, and getting into the practice of flowing. Okay, I'm contractive, I can flow into expansive. It's not about pushing the feelings down. It's not about, like, we can, and I've got a whole kind of process for checking in with your feelings too. But sometimes we need to move into the more expansive. And I'm not talking about going from anger to joy like that. That's not it. I'm talking like one emotion? What's the next higher emotion that I can experience? It's not because that would be toxic positivity, and that's not realistic. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not about not tending to the feeling. It's about tending to the energy. Right. So with your toolkit, I recommend including what I call daily joys into your life. So a daily joy would be my hula hooping, would be going out to see my chickens. My sun salutations bring me joy too. Sometimes I'm just smiling when I'm doing my sun salutations. But also having really a toolkit, having a list of the things that really work for you. Like we can have a huge list of things, this and that and the other thing, but the things that you're realistically going to pull in when you need them. Mm-hmm. And so I like to keep a physical copy. I keep a digital copy. Some people, you can keep it in your notes. I also like to give a copy to like my husband, to a personal advocate, right? Somebody who mm-hmm. knows you, and who loves you unconditionally, who is not going to stick the thing in your face. You teach them how to support you. If my husband stuck that thing in my face, like that would create more contractive energy. But maybe, and it depends on who it is, but maybe it's you suggest to your personal advocate. So maybe you say, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Or, hey, like whatever works for you, where you're not feeling attacked or judged, if that makes sense. Does mm-hmm. that answer your question? Like, absolutely. How are you gonna?
Yeah. Okay. And it reminds me of what we've talked about doing with our toddler, with our 3-year-old, mm-hmm. When she's so emotionally dysregulated, and to not let it trigger us, but yes. separating that limit of this is hers. This is not my energy. I can stay regulated. Right. And what are the things that we can do? Is it doing the senses, like naming the senses? Is it counting to 5? Is it blowing imaginary bubbles? Is it, all right. the things to help right. her regulate her nervous system and get back to a place of calm, or a place of regulation, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Getting on with life.
Because when we're able to take care of our own vibe, then we can help our kids. Like just mm-hmm. what you're saying. Mm-hmm. When your child is amped up and then you get amped up, like you're not helping your child. Mm-hmm. We know that, right?
No,
but when
it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So like the Vibe Care Toolkit is a toolkit full of tools. Some of them can be practices. Like I kind of distinguish tools and practices. Like a practice is a meditation is an amazing practice, right? It's really great for people with ADHD. People with ADHD don't think that they can do it, but they can. But it wouldn't be a great tool. But there are other tools, like a sun salutation can be a tool, or, breath work can be a tool. Whatever. Does that make sense? Like a practice Absolutely. Is something that you're doing regularly, and a tool is something when practiced more regularly, it's easier to pull in.
Sure. And it's maybe not quite as, I don't want to say as long, but maybe like it's just not it totally makes sense. It's a practice is something that you likely want to do regularly to enhance or to improve. A tool is something to kind of, in a sense, acutely bring you into a different state.
Mm-hmm. And use in a moment, right?
Yeah.
Something that you can use quickly, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. Doesn't take as long. Beautiful.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think we've kind of touched on this, but what does all of this have to do with being vision driven, or where does that vision driven component come in?
So the vision is one of those tools in the toolkit. A vision is in living a vision-driven life is the most life-giving way of living that I have ever discovered in all of my seeking, right? So I'm not just this passive, I've been seeking for decades, right? I'm not seeking as much. I like to think at this point, I'm more of a light worker than a seeker. I'm still seeking, but does that make sense? Like I've done a lot of seeking in my life. And when I discovered how to live from a vision, which a vision is really, it's a moving toward what you want rather than pushing away from what you don't. It seems like so slight of a shift, and it is, but it's brilliant for the ADHD mind. And here's why: because when you're moving toward what you want, your vision, right? You're deciding, what is it that you really want? How do you want to feel? What do you want? How do you want to feel in relationships? How do you want to feel in your work? That kind of thing. It goes deeper. I'm not going to get completely into it right now, but it's interesting, right? And people with ADHD minds, unless it's interesting, important, or urgent, we have a tough time staying focused on it. So that's why living a vision-driven life is brilliant for ADHD. And when I discovered it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is it. I mean, it doesn't cure everything, right? But it is definitely a tool that you can, your vision, like you can turn it into a visual tool, like a vision board, which I'm looking at right now. So a visual tool that's right there. It's your vision, and you can focus on it. Oh yeah, this is me, like putting yourself into that, into the images or into the vision. Does that make sense? Are you looking at yours too?
I'm looking at mine too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's living a vision-driven life. This is me, this is me in this vision board. Oh my gosh, this is totally interesting. So I'm going to keep moving forward because it's interesting.
I love it. It needs to be interesting and important.
It helps. Yeah. Deadlines. It really help too.
It's just kind of making that mindset shift. That's what we do as coaches, right? Is look towards the future instead of looking at the past and focusing on, I don't want this, but I do want this, and I'm going to move towards that. We're not going to dwell on that's in the past. Right. We're going to acknowledge that it played a role in our lives, and we can move forward. And so this is what I want. And I think
that's exactly
sometimes it's hard for people to visualize that. And sometimes it's hard for people to actually know, especially if they're coming from a place of deep hurt. It's hard to be able to visualize that things can be different.
Yeah.
So
and
you find that the people that you that are drawn to you have done a little bit of the work in the past, or I don't know, how do you get over that hump?
Some have, but what we start with is, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? Once we can, what, like the vibe care toolkit. Okay. How do you want to feel? What are the things that I can do so that I feel calm and confident, for instance? Okay. I want to feel calm and confident. And then once you're able to kind of feel into that, and then sometimes even experiencing yourself, like experiencing a part of your vision. Oh my gosh, I felt calm and confident, right? That realization that I had this vision of myself and I felt calm and confident when I was doing this talk or whatever. And then you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I actually practiced that first, and then I experienced it. So it doesn't have to be this overarching huge thing, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, my relationships are perfect. And I mean, we can get there, but we start with how you feel. It's something, and especially, I didn't mention this either, Kathy, that when you have ADHD, we tend to feel our way through life. Right. So I don't know this for a fact, but it feels like to me that we get up in our heads so much, or we feel so much. Let's turn that around. We feel so much in our bodies. We're feeling all of the natural rhythms of the moon and planetary and as well as from all of our senses, that we tend to go up into our heads. So we feel, and then we go up into our heads, and then we get into a mess. Bringing ourselves back down into the body is where we can take care of it, right? Because it feels uncomfortable to feel those feelings. But when we have the tools and the practices, the skills, we can practice, we can kind of play with it. We can play with how we feel. Oh, this doesn't feel, this feels a little more contractive. This feels a little more expansive. And it's going to change, like, we change all the time, just like we change daily or even hourly, probably on the yoga mat, right? Every time I get on the yoga mat, I'm different, right?
Yep.
So we just kind of, okay, what's going to feel good today?
Yeah. Start with how we want to feel. And then you can even envision, okay, when's a time in your life where you have felt like that? If you haven't felt like that, well, then that's when we work with imagination. That's when we begin to develop those skills. Or like you said, find those moments where, they do experience it, and then move from there.
Cool. Yeah. And then we can grow. And I've been doing this for years. I've been guiding moms through visioning. And sometimes it's really hard at the beginning. But then, I mean, I've seen just visions grow huge. I actually have a client and colleague who is getting ready to open up a sensory gym here in Raleigh. And we've been working on this, her vision for this thing. She knew it was going to be something. It wasn't a gym back in 2016, but now it is. It's in process. It's supposed to open this year.
Awesome.
Right. But in the beginning, it was like, how do you want to feel? Well, I want to feel like I'm making a difference. Okay. How does that feel? Does that make sense? So it kind of grows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to start to wrap this up. 2 questions for you. Tell us, of all of what we have talked about, how does having this vision-driven life and being a vision-driven mom with ADHD, how does that cultivate greater health, harmony, and happiness in your life?
So when living a vision-driven life, at the base of it, it's about self-awareness, right? The more we know about ourselves, the more we know ourselves, the more we can make choices that are right for us. And when we're making those choices that are right for us, of course, we're going to experience more health, harmony, and happiness, right? It's kind of more of it, not always. And here's the thing, like living a vision-driven life is not like, it's not the cure for anything. Right. But it's definitely a support. Does that make sense? The more you know yourself, the more you're able to make the decisions that are right for you.
Yep. And like you said, it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time that you have health, harmony, and happiness in your life all the time. It certainly doesn't, especially being a mom, especially when you've got all this stuff going on.
Right. I mean, especially being a human.
That we're seeking. Right. Being a human, for sure.
Yeah. Being a human.
It's something that we can seek. It's the vision that we can seek to move towards. So
that's it. We're beautiful. Always moving toward it. We're moving toward health. We're moving toward harmony. We're moving toward happiness all the time. Right. Yeah. We're not experiencing it all the time, but we can always be moving that way.
Right. It's like that shift from contraction to expansion. That's what I had thought of earlier that I wanted to say, is that it's moving towards expansion. It's not that we're going immediately to it and it's going to be this extreme opposite. It's I want to move towards the next level up, towards
how can I shift?
Where I want to be.
Little shifts. It's little shifts. Because if you try to do those giant shifts, you're going to knock out your nervous system anyway. So we want to just still want to do little.
And finally, what's one thing that you're doing in life right now to invite more intention into your life?
So I talk a lot about in the work that I do about intentional movement, and yoga is one of those things. Now, I'm not perfect, Kathy. I used to be, I'm not going to say better. Getting on my mat used to be easier for me. But when I do it regularly, and which is what I encourage moms with ADHD to talk about, is regularly, maybe not necessarily saying daily, but regularly, right? So that's kind of flexible consistency. But those sun salutations that I've been talking about, I love them. I love the way they feel in my body. And and it's intentional, right? It's intentional. Every move, every breath, every shift. Sometimes I do cross lateral moves too, because the cross lateral helps with the brain function, with organizing the brain. But I have to say the sun salutations are the way that I bring more intention into my life.
I love it. I love it. I'll tell you what, they do feel good, and it can be a quick, snap
10
out.
minutes, right?
It's one of those, exactly. And it's one of those things that when I know I'm getting, like my kids are getting to me, if I start doing sun salutations, they're like, okay, we need to stop doing whatever we're doing and move out of this.
That's
like
fun.
she's getting worked up. We're going to just move away from that and stop doing it. And we'll stop now, Mom. Okay, thanks. Like,
What a beautiful,
because I'm just trying to calm myself down. I've got to do some movement. Sun salutations and cartwheels. I start doing those. They're like, cartwheels. What is going on? Yeah. So
that's brilliant. And what a beautiful, I mean, and you're showing your kids too. This is what mommy does when she's getting amped up. She does sun salutations and cartwheels.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not perfect at it. I can tell you that. But
right.
When I can go there with my response, it's, that's the trigger for my kids to realize, like, oh gosh, yep, we maybe need to rethink what we're doing here. Or
I love that. That's a tool for your Vibe Care toolkit.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, Tracy, thank you so much for being here today. And it's just been a pleasure. And I'm excited and looking forward to being on your podcast coming up in the future as well. I'm going to invite you to start thinking about what you would put in your own Vibe Care toolkit and what that might look like. I know Tracy's probably got some ideas and resources for you out there on her website, which I will drop a link to in the show notes. Tracy's also got an ADHD supports guide for you that she wants to make available. So I'll put a link to that. That Vibe Care toolkit is just definitely something that I think any one of us, even if you don't have ADHD, would benefit from having, just because there's always those moments in life. For instance, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, the rhythm of summer gets feeling like that. And so if we had this toolkit already, where we have this list and we know what we can go to, what some of those go-to tools are that we can use to come back into our bodies, to come back to ourselves, it's giving yourself one less thing to have to think about. And it's almost like it's creating a system for you that you can just go to, look at, and be able to care for yourself and nurture yourself in that way. So it's a beautiful thing. You've been listening to Health, Harmony, and Happiness with Kathy. I'm Kathy Stricker, helping you find and use the rhythms in all you do. Cheers to cultivating your own version of health, harmony, and happiness in your life.